Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
I'd like to welcome everyone to our webinar today with lateshipment.com. My name is Bob Kirk with Canadian Apparel Federation, and we'll be joined by a very good cross-section of retailers and brands really across Canada. So what we'll do today is we'll have a presentation of about 30 minutes from Late Shipment. There'll be opportunities for questions and answers at the end, and certainly there'll be plenty of opportunities for the folks at Late Shipment to follow up with you if their service is compelling and you want to follow up that way. Just a couple quick housekeeping items. This session is recorded, so you don't have to furiously take screenshots and notes. The recording will be available to you probably about 24 hours from now. It usually takes a little bit of processing time, not too much. So first of all, your value is paying attention, and don't worry about the notes and everything else. So once again, that goes to you automatically based on your registration. Secondly, if you want to ask questions, I encourage you to do so. Simply use the question box in your control panel, usually in the top right-hand side of your page, and simply click on that and ask the questions. If it makes sense to answer them as the question comes up, I'll interrupt the presenter and we'll do it that way. Otherwise, the question comes to the end, and if it's unanswered, we'll answer it at that point. And if for any reason that's not enough, if we're not able to address it at the end, it'll be made available to the presenter in written form, and they can respond to you directly. Okay, so once again, the session is about 30 minutes, give or take, question answer. And if you have questions, ask them. And the final note, because a lot of people have joined even in the last minute or two, the session is recorded, and that recording will be sent to you. So what I'll do at this point is I'll ask Shriram if he's available. Are you on the line now?
Hello. Hi, Bob. Yes, this is Sri from lateshipment.com.
Very good. I'll hand the floor to you and proceed.
Good day, everybody. Again, thank you so much to CAF and to everybody in attendance here for giving us the opportunity to be present and be able to talk to you guys this morning. I know this is a short webinar, so without wasting much more time, let me get straight into what we are here for today. By the way of a short introduction, my name is Sri. I am the CEO of lateshipment.com. I'm also one of the software architects behind the system, so I have a pretty good understanding of how the system works from within. So that being said, one of the primary reasons we put this webinar together is to help the merchant community understand the importance of holding shipping carriers accountable for their performance. In fact, at lateshipment.com, we exist for this sole purpose. We hope to bring better transparency to the world of shipping. And that starts with carrier accountability, in our honest opinion. That being said, one of the first questions that come our way when we throw out a word like carrier accountability is a business coming back and asking us why we need that. There are very specific and very important answers to that question, starting with an amazing 10 to 20% reduction in your shipping costs through refund claims for service failures. 10 to 20% sounds like a really big number, especially in the world of shipping where every dollar is hard earned, especially when you get into negotiation with a shipping carrier. The way we make this feasible is hidden in your shipping contract, by the way. If you look at any contract that you sign with a shipping carrier, be it Canada Post, any other carrier that you work with, you would find several clauses which guarantee the performance of the shipping carrier. What I mean by guaranteed performance, something as simple as an on-time delivery. If you're paying for a shipment to be delivered in 2 days, if it doesn't reach that in 2 days, most contracts carry a clause which is supposed to give you an entire refund of the shipping cost. And when you request for the refund when a mistake like that happens, you do get that money back. And there are about 50 other cases where a refund like that is quite possible. Other obvious examples, a billing error happens. Maybe you're billed twice for shipment. Maybe you were charged a specific surcharge for which the service was never carried out. Maybe there was a mistake made, which resulted in a bad delivery, or maybe a lost shipment, which again guarantees a refund for you, but then this may not automatically happen. Filing refund claims, holding shipping carriers accountable for their performance, make sure money gets credited back to your account. That often results in a 10 to 20% reduction in shipping costs. The second obvious case for carrier accountability is a remarkable decrease in the number of service failures you see from shipping carriers. What I mean by that, if you work with any supplier in the past, you would often notice when you have a mechanism to hold them accountable for performance, you see a marked improvement in the performance you receive from them. Shipping carriers pretty much operate the same way. When they know a specific account is very intent on monitoring their performance and is always at their back when a mistake happens, it is obviously in their best interest to provide better performance to those accounts. And typically, when we start working with an account in the first 3 to 6 months, we see an uptick in the performance levels that they see from shipping carriers. The third obvious reason is, of course, data-driven shipping choices. If you're like most businesses, any data that you get with regards to your shipping carrier performance, etc., comes from the shipping carrier themselves. And when that is the case, there is every incentive for them to make sure the performance data that gets to you is inflated and shows them in good light. Very easy example for how data works against you is when you maybe sit down for a negotiation with a shipping carrier. You obviously have a team of people come in from the carrier side, armed to the teeth with data about your shipping patterns, shipping accounts, your spending, your choices, and so on. And they present what they say is going to be the best option for you when it comes to shipping costs or shipping choices. But then you often walk into that negotiation not having the same amount of data that shipping carriers have. So your choice at that point is not data driven, but basically dependent on any data the carrier provides and conceivably tries helping you make that choice, which is often in their own interest. So when you start holding shipping carriers accountable, these problems solve themselves. And these problems become even bigger concern at this crucial time during the shipping window. We are just entering the busy holiday shipping season. So that amplifies a lot of these issues and causes even bigger problems on your fulfillment end. For instance, holiday shipping typically sees a 2.5 time increase in regular shipping volumes. That causes congestion and increases the probability of failures, often by 5 times what you typically see in a regular shipping window. In addition to this, especially in holiday season 2018, Canada finds itself in a very unique position where Canada Post is coming out of one of its longest strikes ever. You may have already received communication from Canada Post or other carriers regarding the impact the strike is having on their fulfillment numbers. We are seeing up to a 40% increase, 40% failure rate with regards to shipments being delivered on time. This is quite unprecedented, and this is set to be further amplified as we get closer to Christmas due to the higher volume of shipments that we see coming in. So if you're not holding shipping carriers accountable, now is a great time to start. It's probably the best time to start, in my honest opinion. So that brings us to the question that most businesses ask us right after we explain these problems to them. So if this is such a big problem, why don't more businesses hold shipping carriers accountable? In fact, to put numbers out there, we know about 97% of businesses do not have a mechanism to hold their shipping carriers accountable. So why is this the case when the problem is so serious? There are 2 easy reasons or very obvious reasons that explains why things are this way. When you think about it, carriers often put in a lot of guarantees in their contracts because they do really well in selling their services. They're there for marketing purposes. Imagine a rep walking in telling you that they guarantee the performance levels of all their services. That makes for a great selling point. But then when you think about the failure rates that these carriers have, especially in Canada, you often see failure rates greater than 10% for many service types. Paying out for failures is a very, very expensive proposition. So what carriers do is they often don't tell you the process for filing a refund claim, a process for identifying and holding carriers accountable for a failure is especially complicated and involves a lot of manual work on your end to identify these failures, put in a refund claim for them, and this means carriers have no incentive to help make these claims easier, and it often means they profit more than $3 billion around the world just through these unclaimed refunds, and they have no interest in changing things around. So that brings us to a solution we can talk about for this obvious problem, which affects pretty much every business out there. LateShipment.com is in existence to work on the retailer side to help mitigate the impact of these service failures, make sure you as a business stays in command of your shipping and has a mechanism to hold carriers accountable for their performance. And that brings us to how LateShipment.com actually accomplishes this. Is it a complicated set of process? Does it involve integration? Does it involve my IT team? The answer to all those questions is a clear no. The sign-up process for starting to work with us takes exactly 2 minutes. I have timed myself doing it. A lot of businesses around the world have started using us. Sign-up process takes 2 minutes because it involves only 2 steps. One is, of course, creating a username and password with us, which lets us log into your account. 2 is linking your credentials for shipping accounts, your username and password for your shipping accounts with the LateShipment.com account. From that point onwards, we work 100% in the background, pull information necessary from your shipping account for filing claims, making sure claims get credited back to your account, generating reports that we have at your disposal, tracking shipments in real time. All that work happens seamlessly in the background. In fact, we are 100% automated after the initial 2-minute setup process. It really does not require any involvement from your end to have our services working. And anytime you want to see us working, you can always log in and see the dashboards that you have available. In addition to refunds, in fact, it's surprising when we tell people there are also a lot of other ways we continue helping businesses. I did briefly mention reports. The reports are specifically tailor-made to give you unprecedented levels of insight into your supply chain, into the performance of your shipping carriers, help you understand what exactly is going on, what choices are being made at your end with regards to shipping. We also have an entire section devoted to real-time reports, which track pretty much every shipment you have in transit, often inform you about service failures before they happen, letting you step in and mitigate the impact before they affect your customers. We also provide a host of analytic capabilities. We help you make data-driven shipping choices, both in terms of carrier negotiations, or maybe changes that you hope to make in your supply chain, maybe switching carriers, putting objective data in front of you, which make all these decisions easier, often help make even the most difficult decisions on your supply chain seamless and data-driven. So that, in fact, brings us to a couple of our dashboards. We have a whole lot of these. We have about 20 dashboards in total, which gives you a 360-degree view for supply chain and your carrier choices. This is, in fact, a refunds dashboard, which gives you a quick insight into what claims have been filed, what claims have been received successfully back into your account, etc. This is our carrier performance dashboard, tells you how, in this instance, FedEx has been doing in terms of delays for the last several months. And again, all carriers have separate sections which outline their performance. You're also able to compare performance across carriers, etc. This is just a couple of the 20 dashboards that are available at your disposal the moment you start signing up for the service and you start using it. And another question that people often ask about us, because we deal with shipping data, we integrate directly with your shipping accounts, is whether we are secure. I'm proud to say, from the day we launched, security has been one of our biggest concerns. In fact, we use the same security standards as what most financial institutions use. All our communication is encrypted. In fact, a lot of our larger customers have also audited us independently, and I can't recall even a single instance where a customer did not work with us because they didn't find their security protocols adequate. I'm proud to state that, and security is something that we take very, very seriously. We self-audit ourselves every quarter and also hire external firms to audit us. We are GDPR compliant. Our data is stored in secure data servers. Communication is audited, and the only purpose that we use our data for, the limited data that we have access to, is filing different claims and generating reports on your behalf. Well, that also brings us to another popular question, which I always like taking. I mean, after telling them these whole bunch of things, saying this is all possible after 2 minutes at a process, all the problems that you face with regards to your shipping carrier, overpaying, etc., is going to be solved. Is people coming back and asking us, is there a catch attached to this? I mean, sounds too good to be true. The simple answer to that, absolutely not. Whatever I told you is exactly what late shipment does. In fact, we are so confident of our services, we do not have any commitment or long-term contract associated with the services. Again, I'm proud to state we have several customers who stayed with us for more than 5 years at this point. We have a customer retention rate of greater than 98%. Often the only reason customers leave us is maybe they move to a shipping carrier we no longer support, or they do not operate a business that ships anymore. That being said, the only reason customers stay with us is because they love our services and they get consistent value out of our services month after month. And that lets us function and have these customers with us for a long term without any commitment or contract attached to their accounts, free to cancel anytime. In addition to this, late shipment guarantees that all the work that we do on the back end, working with your carrier, filing decent claims, etc., is 100% compliant with your shipping contract. We take particular care to ensure that anything that we do for filing claims, etc., complies with all the terms that carriers lay out on your contract. And it often means there has been no instance whatsoever where there has been a negative impact caused by the claims that we file, and we take complete responsibility for that. We guarantee that, in fact, the relationship you have with the carrier not just remains the same, but often improves. Finally, the pricing part, that is, I save the best for the last because our pricing model is very, very unique. In fact, we cost zero out of pocket and in fact, make you money month after month. How we do this, the only time we charge our customers for our service is when we have successfully collected a refund on their behalf from a shipping carrier. At that point, we take half of the successful refund claim and have the other half go to your account. I mean, after the full claim has been credited back to your account, we bill you for half the claim. So that means if I have to describe our pricing model in very brief terms, both of us get paid by the shipping carrier. And there are no associated costs on your end, no out-of-pocket costs. And all the other services that we do in addition to the recent claims, they come with no cost attached to them. So that brings me to a very specific point in the presentation where I'm going to hand over control to Patrick Bartlett, who I'm very fortunate to have us have join us today. Patrick is in fact is in Canada, has extensive experience working with Canadian shipping carriers. I will let him have a brief introduction, but Pat will be taking over at this point and giving you specific information about the Canadian shipping market and how the work that late shipment does is very, very important in specific to Canadian customers. Pat, are you there?
Yes, I am, Sri. Thank you very much for that introduction. Good morning, everyone. As Sri mentioned, I've been banging around the small parcel business for quite a few years now. I've worked both for private sector carriers in senior marketing and sales role. And I was also responsible for general manager responsible for Canada Post parcel business for a number of years as well. So it's an area that I'm very comfortable with and very familiar with. Before joining with late shipment or bringing late shipment into Canada, I had been doing work with a number of shippers and retailers who were helping them negotiate parcel rates with carriers and so forth. And I was able to provide them certain insight and certain things that helped them in that negotiation process. Then I thought, what's the best way that I can really help shippers across Canada? And in my work, I've done a lot of work cross-border and understood what was going on in the marketplace, and saw that there was a growing business in the refund business and for late deliveries, other issues, other audit type things. And we started a search to try to find a company that could work in the Canadian marketplace. And we came across Late Shipment, who certainly saw the opportunity in Canada, but more importantly, they had the technology that would work in the Canadian marketplace. They had the way an approach that would work. Their pricing model was quite good. The way little or no, actually no integration, sign up was easy. All of those kinds of things, which would make for a very positive customer experience. And of course, in Canada, there was it was quite an interesting opportunity. So first of all, one of the unique things in the Canadian marketplace, and not everyone is aware of this, even some people who are big Canada Post users are not aware that Canada Post guarantee most of their shipping products, all their track shipping products to commercial customers, so including expedited parcel, express post, priority, courier, and so forth. Now, Canada Post is, or Canada has some challenges in the area of shipping. Certainly, it's a market that's, we don't have the same kind of density that you see in the United States. So as a result, we see shipping costs are much higher in Canada as a percent of goods sold than they would be in the United States. As part of that, as well, we see higher failure rates in Canada than we do in the United States, and there's a number of reasons for that. One of the issues is that U.S. carriers who have come into the Canadian marketplace haven't made the same investment in their own infrastructure, terminals, and so forth, as they have in the United States. So they're more likely to use interline carriers, or matter of fact, use Canada Post for last mile delivery. So it's a combination of those things. And so what we find is we get much higher failure rates in Canada. The geographic challenges, sure, yes, please go to the next slide. Challenges in Canada, as we all know, we're spread out along the U.S. border. We have lots of smaller cities and towns, remote areas that we're serving that are quite challenging, and we have long distances to cover. And of course, Canada Post is still making that difficult transition from being a provider of mail services to being a parcel carrier. It's still a challenge for them. They're still investing in new equipment. They're still running into capacity issues as they move forward, and certainly we all are familiar with the issues they faced with labor disruptions over the last 5 or 6 weeks. So Canada certainly provided a significant opportunity for late shipment, but as well for shippers and retailers to lower their shipping costs through getting refunds for late deliveries and other carrier errors, and to be able to hold carriers accountable. And we've had good luck. We've been operating in Canadian marketplace now for just about 3 years. We've had some significant growth in the market, and we can, in this slide, we're pointing out some of our customers and some of the money, the refunds that they've been able to get back from a single year of shipment. DeliveryNet, we see at the top, is a 3PL provider. They were one of our earlier customers, and typically they're seeing close to $100,000 worth of refunds per year, pretty significant. And you can see some of the other well-known brands such as Toys R Us, Roots, and Michael Kors, who are receiving significant refunds back. And of course, what's interesting about late shipment is we have both very large customers in Canada and some small customers. And one of the neat things about our service, there's no minimum requirements. You could have 5 pieces a day or 5,000 pieces a day. We will handle it. And we only charge you when we get a refund back for you. So in effect, the carrier pays both of us. I think that wraps up our presentation for this morning. Sri, let me pass it back over to you, see if you have any closing comments.
Actually, like Pat mentioned, that this brings us to the close of the presentation. I think Pat was very generous in describing the unique set of circumstances that make Canada the perfect market for carrier accountability. We are glad to have been able to talk about that problem, and at this point, I'm very open to taking on any questions you may have about the service or anything we spoke about during the course of the presentation.
Perfect. So I want to thank Pat and Sri for the presentation. We did get a couple comments from people indicating that the audio was a little hard to follow. What I've mentioned to some people is that I've been listening to it on a headset. It's been fine. Not so much Pat, but certainly connecting through Mumbai has been a little bit of a challenge. But it's quite clear on the recording. You'll have that recording by within 24 hours, maybe even later this afternoon if things go quickly. So we got a couple questions, and I encourage anyone that's still on the line to ask them. There was a question, I think it was answered, but I'll ask it again. So the first thing is, does late shipment upload data from the carrier's portal, or is there any data entry at all? So maybe Pat can answer that because his line's much clearer.
Sure. So all we don't require any upload from you. We are connected through the carrier in a couple of different ways. We use your login credentials to be able to access certain pieces of carrier information, which allows us to track your items and identify those that are late and submit refunds on your behalf.
Okay. There is a rather straightforward question. How do I sign up?
Simply go to lateshipment.com and create a username and password, which is just your email address, and then enter in your carrier credentials, and you're good to go. That's it.
So very straightforward. Okay. So it is too good to be true. So that's very clear. If there's anyone else that has any questions, I'll just sort of kind of move a little bit ahead here. So first of all, just as I've said before, everything's recorded, and you'll have that recording shortly. We will also provide the emails of attendees to late shipment. So I think probably you'll get a short note from Pat asking whether you have any further questions or need any follow-up. And again, because it was a little difficult to hear, listen to the recording. I think it really explains everything of relevance. We have a couple more questions, so let me roll back to them. There is a question: do Canada Post conditions prevent us from sharing credentials with a third party? I think this was answered, but maybe I'll hand that back to Pat and you can answer it again.
No, there's no restrictions on Canada Post side. You're perfectly able to designate an agent to do work on your behalf, and that can affect what you're doing. And remember, it's important to point out that we do not, we only look at information that's required to track a package and submit refunds. So we don't look at, names or addresses or anything of that sort. We just use postal code and tracking numbers and that kind of non-specific, non-personal information.
Okay. And so in basic terms, you don't care. But at the same time, when there's a failure, everything is automatic at that point, correct? There's a failure, you submit the claim, and the restitution is made.
The restitution, and the money goes back directly into your carrier account. It doesn't come to us; it goes to you, and then we only get paid, as they say. We only get paid if you get paid.
Okay. So I think that addresses things. Again, many of these points were in the presentation, but I think the audio was a little challenging. So I do encourage everyone to listen if they want to find out more details. But I would say, I'm not sure it's been mentioned, there's a timeliness factor here, is there not, Pat? That, I mean, you can't just wait 6 months to issue to move ahead on past shipments. You have to submit those claims within a certain period of time, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. For UPS and others, it's 15 days. For Canada Post, it's 30 days. They claims it's a perishable good.
So,
sure.
And again, just not meaning to put words in your mouth, but there's no ongoing obligation. You have a time sensitivity here. So I think people should, take a look at what you've got, see if it's a good fit. But now's the time when most of the volume is moving through system, and the greatest potential for failures. There is a question that belies things. I think you sort of implicitly answered just a minute ago. You use Canada Post a lot as an example, but can you list the carriers that you do support or are able to manage?
Yeah, sure. Certainly Purolator, FedEx, UPS, Campar, Loomis, DHL. Is there anyone in Canada that I'm missing? How many carriers worldwide do we support, Sri?
We work with more than 40 different carriers around the world. So if you are working with a major shipping carrier that has an online system, we have probably plugged into them already.
Okay, very good. So pretty much anyone. So I've said this before, I'll say it again. If there are no more questions, I think we'll wrap things up here. I want to thank people for attending. I want to thank the folks at Late Shipment, which is a partner of ours and part of our transportation offerings to members. So thank you to all for attending or presenting. And once again, once I conclude, within 24 hours, we'll have the video available to people. I'll send you a link to the GoToWebinar platform. And we'll also be able to provide your information to Late Shipment. And like I said, I encourage you to look a little further into what their service offers. So once again, to all on the line, thank you for attending. As I said, the recording will be available shortly. And with that, we'll conclude today's webinar. Thank you, Pat. And
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.
this thing is going crazy on me. It's